It was a late night here inside the European Council. Theresa May met with her 27 European counterparts. They then chatted for more than 7 hours before they came up with an agreement, an offer they would make to her. Remember, it's just a week until they were expecting Brexit to happen. That has now been pushed back. And what the European Union have offered the UK is essentially, if Theresa May can, at the third attempt, get her deal through the British Parliament next week, they'll give her till the end of May to try and get all the corresponding legislation around Brexit through in order for the UK to leave the EU in terms of an orderly withdrawal. If that vote fails for the third time, and there's no indication necessarily she's going to have that majority in Parliament, then the EU is promising the UK they will have to face off with an April 12th deadline. There could be a hard Brexit, though we know that no one in the UK Parliament in terms of majority wants that to happen, or there could be some alternative options. And I've asked a lot of heads of state here over the last 24 hours what those could look like. Theresa May not willing to talk about them, and neither were any of the others willing to speculate. We're knowing we could be looking at a much longer extension, we could be looking at a softer version of Brexit, and of course things like a second referendum still not impossible, guys.
The Prime Minister said earlier this week and last week she absolutely would not contend an extension beyond June 30th. If her deal fails next week, but Parliament somehow adds an amendment or tries to force her to seek a longer extension, what do we think happens then?
Well, she kind of implicitly hinted, didn't she, Wilf, over the course of the last few days, that she would not, as Prime Minister was the wording, want to see Brexit extend beyond June 30th. The implicit understanding there is that she would not remain as Prime Minister. Her own Conservative Party can't get rid of her as leader until December because of the rules of the party. There's not been an ability so far for the Houses of Commons to get rid of her as Prime Minister, but there is an implication there that if Brexit is extended beyond the end of June against her wishes, then she would be prepared to resign.
And Willem, in terms of whether or not we see another vote on her Brexit deal next week, do we know when that might be? And what's the tone there in Brussels as to whether they are willing to show further flexibility than April 12th if her deal fails?
Everything we heard from the leadership here in Brussels, Jean-Claude Juncker and Donald Tusk, was like, this is our best offer right now. In terms of what they would do if the deal falls through next week, and there's no implication, no idea that it necessarily will get through, in terms of what they will do in reaction to that, no real clear answers. The UK will have to come back, whether Theresa May is still Prime Minister or not, the UK government will have to come back to Brussels, potentially, and say, this is what we'd like to do instead. This could be a much, much longer extension period, although that, again, will put Theresa May under a lot of pressure from the pro-Brexit wing of her own party.